Okay, so we just covered the break-even price, which is the price at which a firm, in this case in perfect competition, but it doesn't have to be, but a firm makes normal profit, aka their economic profit is equal to zero. Okay, and that determines whether a firm will enter or not. Remember, if something's making economic normal profit, you're essentially saying the opportunity cost and the expense is exactly equal to the revenue that you'd make, such that if you chose any other or the next best industry, you'd be as well off as if you stayed in the industry you're currently in. So there's no reason to enter, there's no reason to leave. Now we're going to cover what's called the shutdown price. And essentially this is a price lower than break-even price, where if you're a firm that's already in the market, so if you're below break-even price rate, you're not going to enter the market. There's no incentive to enter that. But what if you're already in the market? Well, you could leave. You might not want to leave, though. Why might you not want to leave? So imagine you started a business. You put in $10,000 to your fixed cost. So you put a building in, or it's $10,000 is a low amount for starting a business. Let's say you're in a low fixed cost industry. You put $10,000 in, and you put in your rent for like a lease for a property for a year, and maybe you hired one seasonal worker or something like that. So you have your fixed costs. You can't just fire that worker for like a small period of time. You're going to like let out their contract or whatever. So you have your fixed cost. Well, at what point does it make sense to exit the market, or what point does it make sense to try to make a little bit of, not profit, but make a little bit of your money back, right? So you can, depending on the price, you can still sell things. And if you're selling, I'm kind of giving away the plot here, but if you're selling above your variable cost, essentially you can recoup some of that fixed cost, right? And I'll show you exactly how that breaks down mathematically. But the key point here is, if your price is going to be lower than your variable cost, well, every unit that you're selling is going to cost you more than you're getting back from it. But if your price is greater than your variable cost, it's going to cost you less than you're getting back from it. So even though you ate a big fixed cost, it would make sense to stay in the market. So we call this point at which price is equal to your average variable cost, your shutdown price. Okay, and I know I gave the thread away here. I gave the plot. Spoiler alert. But we'll derive it. You'll see where it comes from. But that's the logic behind it. Okay, so whereas break-even price determines whether you enter or leave the market, or excuse me, whether you enter or not enter the market, shutdown price determines whether you leave the market or you stay and continue to sell, even though you know that for that particular time period you're already making negative profit. Okay. So what if the price is lower than your average total cost? What if it's lower than your break-even price and you are already opened? You've already incurred your fixed cost. So you've sunk the fixed cost. Remember, we have the sunk cost from the consumer theory lectures, where sunk cost is a fixed cost that you've already paid. You can't get it back. So making your decision based on the sunk cost doesn't make a lot of sense. Okay. So in this case, the bad way to think about it would be, I put a lot of money into the business. I'm going to continue it regardless of whether or not I'm making positive revenue after my fixed cost, right? So if you're continuing to stay in the business because even when your price is lower than your shutdown price, that would be an example. On the basis that you paid a lot in your fixed cost, that would be a good reason, that would be the sunk cost reasoning. That would be a good example of the sunk cost reasoning. It's not a good reason. Okay, so once you've sunk the fixed cost, basically you're consigned to have paid negative FC, your fixed cost, but you can make something back between negative FC and zero. Zero being the upper bound because we know that the price is already lower than your break-even price just based on how I phrased this question up here. Okay. So you're basically, you can make less than a negative FC technically, but obviously you don't want to do that. Oh, sorry, I gave it away again. All right, so let's derive the shutdown price. Okay, let me bring over my whiteboard over here. Come on. Here's a fun fact while you're waiting for me. In Japanese, the word whiteboard is whiteboardo. That's your little weeb fact for the day. All right, so we left with price. If price is less than average total cost of Q, pi is less than 0, so you're making negative profit essentially, so there's no reason to enter. If pi, oh sorry, this is P. If your pi is less than 0, should you leave though? No, you already paid your fixed cost. You can potentially make some of it back. Okay. Whoa, hey, that's not what I wanted to do. Okay, a little bit bigger. Little bit bigger. So you can have want to find a price at which pi greater than negative fixed cost. Oh, I'm sorry, this is less than. So we know that this here is when price is equal to average total cost. So we want this here. Okay, so pi equals, so we said that pi equals total revenue minus total cost. Okay, and we got pi divided by q equals p minus, or sorry, oh yeah, let's leave it like that. Pi divided by q equals p minus average total cost of q, and times q, right? This is just a rehash of this bad boy up here, right? It's the same thing. I need my stars here. I'm actually not going to put the stars in because you might confuse them for multiplication signs. But this is literally just this. Just the word profit is written as pi. And instead of multiplying by q, I guess pi divided by q equals price minus average total cost. Okay, so basically it's the same steps as before. Like we're just working off where we left off. But we can break down average total cost into average fixed cost of q and average variable cost of q, right? So remember, total cost of q equals fixed cost plus variable cost of q. Average total cost of q equals fixed cost divided by q plus average variable cost, or we could say variable cost of q divided by q, which is the same as saying fixed cost of q plus average variable cost of Q. Oh, sorry, average fixed cost. Right. So these are all the same thing. Let's leave it. All right. So if price divided by quantity equals P minus average fixed cost of Q plus average variable cost of Q. Okay. And we want it to be equal to fixed cost. Okay. Divided by Q. Let's multiply everything by Q. I don't know why. It's all the same, but it probably looks easier for you. So if we want pi to equal fixed cost, which is what we're looking for here, or if we want it strictly greater than fixed cost, right, then this term, which is just another way of writing your pi, your profit, has to be greater than fixed cost. Okay. So pi equals P minus fixed cost divided by Q plus AVC minus Q. Okay, so let's just do one side for a second. So PQ minus FC, or P minus FC, yeah, fine. I'm distributing the Q. I'm going to keep it as one step. Plus, now we're at variable cost of Q. Must be greater than FC. Subtract FC from both sides. PQ minus variable cost of Q must be greater than 0. So PQ minus variable cost of Q. Divide this whole thing by Q. Because Q is always positive, we can do this. Must be greater than 0. Just an aside, if you're dividing by a negative, the sign should switch. So, when you have an inequality, you got to be careful when you divide by negatives that you switch the sign. In this case, we know Q is always positive, so we're capable of doing that without worrying about it. We know that Q is always positive because you can't sell negative quantity. That doesn't make any sense. Okay, so and this should be divided by Q. So now we're going to distribute out the divided by Q. We're going to get back to VCQ. Must be greater than 0. And then finally, P minus average variable cost of Q must be greater than 0. So if P minus, one more step. If P is greater than average variable cost of Q, we have then if P is greater than average variable cost of Q, then pi is going to be greater than your negative fixed cost. Okay. Also, this should have been negative from the jump. So to those who caught that, it would have been negative. It would have been positive too if I didn't do that, because it would have been adding both of these. But this is correct as it stands. Okay, so one more time. Let's do this a little bit. I got the steps written down, and I kind of played around with them a little bit. So let's just use the one that I had pre-written. Okay, they're the same steps. It's just this is probably going to be a little bit smoother. Okay, so price minus average total cost of Q is your pi divided by Q. You can break down average total cost by average fixed cost and average variable cost. Price divided by Q, profit divided by quantity. So we're just plugging in this with this guy here. So average fixed cost is this, average variable cost is this. So price minus average variable cost minus your average fixed cost. Okay. So and then I'm going to multiply both sides by Q. So profit equals price times quantity, minus average variable cost times quantity. minus fixed cost. Okay, so this is distributed everywhere, the Q. Okay, and then basically, if price is greater than average variable cost, then that implies that pi is going to be greater than negative FC. Okay. So if this is, like, think about it. If this is lower than this whole thing is going to be negative, meaning this whole thing is going to be negative, meaning you're going to have a negative minus FC, so pi is going to be less than FC. Okay. If price is greater than average variable cost, then this is going to be positive, meaning that this is going to be positive, meaning you're adding a positive to negative FC, so profit will be greater than negative FC. Okay. So as long as price is greater than average variable cost, then we can say that the firm is making back some of its sunk cost, essentially, some of its fixed cost. Okay. So as long as price is greater than average variable cost, profit will be greater than negative FC. If profit is greater than negative FC, then it makes sense to stay in and continue to sell, and make back some of what you paid in fixed cost. If price is less than average variable cost, your profit will be lower than negative FC, meaning not only did you sink a fixed cost in there, but you continue to produce at a loss. So if you're continuing to produce at a loss, you're shooting yourself in the foot. Why would you do that? Like, you've already sunk the fixed cost in. Why would you continue to produce at a loss? That's sunk cost logic. Some people do that, but it's not rational. It doesn't make any sense. So you should shut down, at least temporarily, as long as price is below your average variable cost. If you expect in the intermediate to long term that price is going to rise again, well, then you shut down, but you'll wait until market conditions are favorable, which could be the case, right? So think about a restaurant, right? So it's COVID. If you're watching this, it's COVID, at least at the time of recording. And let's do this on whiteboard, actually. So let's bring this back to the supply and demand lectures. Okay, so you're in an industry. Okay, and let's stick with that it's perfectly competitive. So what does that mean? It means your price is equal to your marginal revenue, and that both of them are perfectly elastic. Okay, and basically this is your demand. This is your demand equation right here. Okay, now you have a supply equation. Okay, this is for the industry. Okay, what happens in COVID? Well, you'd expect demand to go down because less people can dine. So your marginal revenue of being open an hour is going to go down. Okay, your marginal revenue of selling a meal is probably going to go down. So your price will drop because less people are dining. Okay, I don't know if I said this in the back of my mind. This is a restaurant. So let's say there's like a negative demand shock like COVID. That's going to drop your price. Okay, if we're looking at the firm level, as my old econ prof used to say, firm. He was Greek. He's a good guy. If you're looking at the firm level, okay, let's draw this over here. Oh, you know what? Actually, this was stupid. I apologize. The industry will not be perfectly elastic except in the long run. In the short run, the industry is perfectly not perfectly inelastic. The in the short run, the industry is like regular, just regular, just a regular industry. Elasticity can be anything. Okay, so this is wrong. I made a stupid. It's kind of good that I make these mistakes because then it kind of allows you to harp on it. When something goes like perfect, I feel like you don't see where the mistakes are and it doesn't make you double think. Okay, so as long as you correct the mistake, I think it's fine. Okay, so this is the industry. Basically, the price point has dropped, and I want to specify that this is the short run. Okay. Yeah. So I have old price and new price. Okay. And the firm's marginal revenue is essentially going to be the same demand curve. So this is DO, not Ronnie James DO for those metalheads out there. Just DO for old, DN for new demand. Okay. And I just want to make a note so that this like sticks that DN and D old are demands, price equals marginal revenue equals some constant. Okay. So if you have some marginal cost, and some average total cost, I want it lower. Oh no, I want higher actually. So I'm trying to minimize it where it crosses the. I think I got a little bit. It's close enough. So this is the minimum right here. Okay, and this is your average total cost again. I guess I should make it a little bit smaller so y'all can see the whole thing. A T C. Okay, and then your average variable cost is going to look much the same. I'm going to do a different color. Let's do black, but let's do it. So in the long run, your average variable cost should start converging with your average total cost. So like. Okay. The reason for that is because the more units you sell, the higher your quantity, the lower your average fixed cost, so your average total cost starts to look like your average fixed cost. Okay. And is that everything? Okay. So this is your break-even price. Okay. Let's call this A. And this is your shutdown price, B. So let's say COVID caused price to drop for industry. And that is the left-hand left-hand graph, not to be confused with the left-hand path. Again, metalheads, we'll get that one. So you have your left-hand graph is the short run drop in price due to COVID. Okay. Firms in the short run and in the long run, so let's just say firms, are price takers in perfect competition. Okay. Demand is constant equal to MR. That's what I just said right here. Okay. At point A, or sorry, at D0 or D old, okay, price was greater than A, your average total cost, Q. So technically speaking, you're going to produce over here. So I don't know why I did it like that. That's just your minimum average total cost. Let me correct that. So where are you going to produce? You're going to produce where marginal cost equals marginal revenue. Okay, so you're going to produce at this point over here. So we can keep this point A. We can keep this. We can add this point C. And this will be point D. Oh, let me just do them as a text here. Okay, so A. I literally just want this letter. Why is it not letting me do that? Move yourself. There you go. Okay, so A, B, C is 1, 2, 3. Okay, so there's B. Okay, and then we want C. Sorry about my mouth keeps getting cut off because I keep moving my position on the laptop, but I don't know why my camera's like so zoomed in. Okay, C. And then D would be your average variable cost down here. So I kind of want B there. Oh. Alright, so I'm labeling different points on this graph, and I'm not doing a great job of it. Let's just do them all as black. A, B, C, D. I guess this one's got to be different. This one could be black, pink. Alright, and then F. Okay, and then I'm not going to draw the dotted line, but this will be Q old This here will be Q new. And basically your Q old hits A and E, your Q new hits C and F, and they correspond to what the quantity, the optimal quantity will be at prices determined by these two blue lines. So if this is the demand curve, what's the optimal quantity? If this is the demand curve, what's the optimal quantity? And the way you find them is, so I saw where the marginal cost, the pink line, intersects with the marginal revenue, the demand curve, the price. Okay, they're all the same thing in perfect competition. So this intersected with the marginal revenue curve here. So that's how I know that Q old is the optimal quantity for the demand old. And then this intersected with the marginal revenue curve here. So I know that Q new is the optimal quantity for the new demand. Okay. All right. So if you remember the graph I had up, I think it was 2 slides ago, I believe. Oh, just 1 slide ago, this guy here. Okay, so there's profit to be made in perfect competition in the short run sometimes. And that's what I wanted to show with A and E. So let's bring this to the left so that we can have it directly next to our graph. Okay, so we're not worried about the industry problem anymore. Okay, so for DO, Q star equals Q old. Okay, DO for D old, because that's where MR equals MC. They intersect, right? Marginal revenue equals marginal cost here. Okay. Q, we can say P of Q star is greater than average total cost of Q star, aka A is higher than E. And by Q star I mean Q old. So if the price is higher than your average total cost, aka the firm is making profit in the short run. Okay, so if nothing happened, you'd want to enter the market. Okay, but would enter the market. 10 out of 10 would enter market. But COVID drops price to DN. So Q star is now QN, where the marginal cost crosses the marginal revenue, this right here at C. Okay. Does the firm make profit at C? Nope. So at C, you can even draw another little guy here. We call it G. Average total cost is a G. All right. At Q new, I guess I called it QN here. This should be Q new. ATC of Q new is greater than your price of Q new, which is greater than your average variable cost of Q new. Okay. So at Q new, don't enter, but don't leave either. Stay in and sell. You can make profits. Pi will be greater than negative FC. So profits will be greater than your negative fixed cost, but it'll be less than 0, but you've already entered the market. So once you've entered, you're essentially, you've already paid your negative fixed cost, so it doesn't make sense to leave. If price dropped below AVC, then leave and wait for vaccine or whatever it is that will eventually drop or increase the price above your average variable cost. Okay. So that is, in a nutshell, your shutdown price. Okay. So you're going to produce as long as price is greater than average variable cost. When price goes below average variable cost, you're not going to want to sell. You'll shut down. You'll wait for the industry to pick back up again, or you'll just quit altogether. So that's why we call P the shutdown price, or sorry, that's what we call average variable cost, the shutdown price. This is the value of price at which you don't want to produce anymore. Okay. For a firm, if price and your marginal revenue, so price and marginal revenue are the same thing in perfect competition, are greater than your average total cost, right? So your price is here at first. If this is greater than your average total cost, okay, so marginal revenue touches marginal cost here, okay. This is higher than your average total cost, so you're going to be making positive profit. So you're going to be making economic profit. So it makes sense for firms to enter. When firms enter, they're going to drive out the supply function. Okay. So like as firms enter, let's do a clean one. Right, so this is the industry. As firms enter, so the quantity will increase, price will decrease, but the number of firms is going to be increasing higher than the quantity increase. Basically, like if 5 firms enter, they're going to be selling, or let's say there's 10 firms now, and they're selling 15 units. If 5 firms enter, maybe they'll be selling 20 units. So where it was like 1.5 per firm, now it's 20 divided by 15, which would be 5/4, 1.25. Okay, no, 3 halves, so 1 point. I don't know. The point is, I lost the thread of trying to do it in my head. The point is that the per firm quantity is going to decrease. Okay, and we can see that in the supply in the firm's problem, because as the price decreases, which is what happens here, right? The price drops. That's going to drop the marginal revenue, and you'll see that as you drop marginal revenue, it's going to intersect with marginal cost of lower and lower quantities. Okay, So as this line moves down, it's going to intersect with the green line at lower and lower quantities on the x-axis. Okay. All right. So let's say price is equal to average total cost now. Okay, so basically that's your break-even price. So you're going to continue producing. Let's say you've got like your little line here. So your line goes down here, right? You're still making positive economic profit because your price is greater than your average total cost. Then your line drops down here. Okay, price greater than average total cost. Price here is a little bit greater. Eventually, your price is going to intersect here with your marginal revenue, marginal cost curve, and this will be the minimum. This will be the average total cost, right? That's the point at which profit's going to equal to 0. So you can basically represent profit as the difference between these 2 points over here when you're starting, and then the difference between the yellow and the green curve is 0 at the break-even price. Okay. So at first you're making this difference times your quantity, so like this area here, as your so basically this used to be your profit. Okay. Now there's no profit. Okay. Then so then let's say the price drops even more. So again, price has to intersect with this marginal cost curve. So if it drops here, or here, 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 you're making greater than your negative fixed cost, right? But you're making negative profit nonetheless because you're below your break-even point. And then it's going to be down here where it doesn't make sense to produce at all your shutdown price. Okay. So anything so this is wrong. Let me change this. So you can change it to shutdown. All right. Sorry about that. So once your average variable cost is greater than your pi, you want, or than your price, you want to leave the market. All right. All right. So I think I threw a lot at you, particularly with this set of slides. So let's break it down step by step in the next lecture video.